I believe there's a lot more good in this world than there is bad.
I think being an artist leads the way.
I think that we have found something amazing here.
Today on Spotlight, meet one of the artists from the upcoming St. Louis Art Fair. Plus, a program giving EMS crews a patient's medical background before they even arrive on scene. And then a new exhibit dedicated to art created during the stay-at-home orders. But first, HEC's Paul Shankman sits down with fashion icon Isaac Mizrahi. It's Sunday and you're watching Spotlight.
Here's my process. I get inspired somehow, and from there, I just do all these millions of sketches.
Isaac Mizrahi has something he wants to get off his chest. His life.
Go.
When you write something, you like to know a lot about the subject, and I know a lot about this subject.
Isaac Mizrahi has done it all, and in his new autobiography, he is telling all.
I thought it was going to be this kind of real fun adventure, and I knew there'd be setbacks and there'd be darkness and stuff around it, because there always is, but it was dark at times.
Why write a memoir now? You're still a pretty young man.
What I really wanted to gather from writing the full book is I wanted to prove that I could write a long-form book. I wanted to prove to myself that I am a writer, you know? And unless you actually have written something long-form, you cannot consider yourself a writer. You know, I've written screenplays, and I've written plays, and I've written articles for magazines, and I've written little stories here and there, and even like an occasional poem. But writing a book is a special kind of crazy, you know, torture/reward.
Is part of it a hope that you reach a certain audience with it? I'm thinking particularly of young artists or young gay men.
Sure. I think of other kids who are born on the outside of life, right? And I think of them maybe not being as resilient as I am, right? And I think of them maybe reading the book someday and going, oh, wait a minute, like, yeah, if I just kind of, if I too can just focus and know that I'm a good person and just soldier on until it gets better, you know? I think being an artist leads the way because, you know, if you don't know the answer to something, if you think about it for a minute as an artist and you just clear away all the stuff that you're supposed to know about it and that you hear about it and all the lies you know about it, you always know the truth. You always do, you know? And that is what motivates me, and that's why I know who I am.
It occurred to me reading it that I was halfway through and you were still 17.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it is
Yes.
about your childhood.
And I will say that was a pre-existing deal about making the book, this kind of literary thing about my life, which focused on the kind of story that went from this really crazy kind of parochial, just kind of really closed up little religious world to this incredibly not closed up and liberal, crazy world.
Well, and for folks who may not know, you grew up in a community in Brooklyn. It was a Syrian.
That's right,
Jewish
Syrian
community.
Jewish.
I didn't even know that was a thing necessarily.
Yeah.
But it sounded like it was pretty tough.
I know, it's tough, and as Philip Johnson once said to me, oh boy, you're Arabic and Jewish. You get to root for whoever's winning. That was what he said to me, which I thought was a very funny thing. Hasidic Jews, they think of art as a false idol. Yeah, you can't create art because someone might worship it or something, or it's more beautiful than God, or I don't know what the deal is, but you're not supposed to be an artist. So that and this idea of like being homosexual, like basically you're just born wicked, you know? But I knew I wasn't. I knew that I was like somehow a good person. The women in those days used to wear like décolletage and big hair and high heels, and it was like crazy. It was more about fashion for those who wanted it to be like the women and me, basically, than it was about this, you know, this piety, right? I think that's what my work is always about. It's that funny exposure to that hypocrisy that makes me, it makes me aware of the politics of how a woman looks at herself and dresses, right? For one thing. It also makes me aware of the politics about the way people in business function, because, you know, people will do anything and call it business as usual, you know? And it's disgusting, but that's the world we live in.
To the world, Isaac Mizrahi appears to have it all: talent, fame, and fortune. And he does. But he grew up in a highly religious community that judged him so harshly, his own sisters still treat him like an outcast.
I don't like to blubber about stuff, but I did not have a happy childhood. I'm sorry, I just didn't.
Underneath stories about his celebrity-filled life, Mizrahi's autobiography is a heartbreaking story of his lifelong battles with weight, insomnia, and depression. But it is also a story about learning to love yourself.
I don't care what anybody thinks of me now, you know, because that's my story. And if you don't agree with it, I'm sorry, it's not your story. It's my story.
Text Isaac to 31996 to watch the full interview or download our Talking with Authors podcast. Follow HEC Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I love painting people. It's a challenge. I want to capture gesture and movement. So when I'm painting, I'm looking at the image and I see the movement that the person is making. If I can capture that, then I think people feel it. I'm Tate Hamilton, and I do oil paintings. I use 5 colors to paint with. It's a challenge, and it's a lot more fun too. So what I do is I take sap green and alizarin crimson and mix them together, and then a little bit of ultramarine blue. Every single dark color that you see on all my canvases is a combination of that. If you see the photo over there, there are some dark shapes. You know, I just kind of start doing the shapes. Everything starts off very abstract. So I've got these shapes here that I'm doing. I start with the darks, and then I get lighter and lighter. See that movement right there in the, yeah, see, I like that. And then I also like this. See that his leg, his right leg is out in front of his other leg? That is a cool movement there. And what's cool about this piece is the contrast. You have 2 people that are fairly close together, and then the third person is further away. And I'll probably put him even a little more out of the way, like way over here, because what that does is it makes an imbalance, which really is more appealing to the eye. As I get lighter in value and color, then I start cutting out the previous shapes to get what I've got. I'll always do oils, always. I like the way it feels. I like the flow. I like the texture. I like the way it goes on. I do paint wet on wet. Some people, they'll take months to do a piece. What I do is a la prima in one sitting. So, but I stand while I paint, so in one standing basically. So I'll do the entire piece, no matter if it takes 10, 15, 20 hours, you know, I'm working on it till it's done. New York and Paris are the 2 places I like to go, because there's always people all the time out there. My wife will take some photos and I take some. I don't normally do a lot of faces because I like for people to put their own face. Oh, that looks like so-and-so, doesn't it? And I like that. If there's too much detail, I don't think the paintings last as long either, because you get bored with it. Yeah, there it is, right there. With these, you can look at it one day and you go, yeah, I see this. It puts me in this mood. The next day you go, well, now I see that and it puts me in this mood. I'm still learning, and that's something that's very important. This is what I tell people, especially kids, when they come in my booth. You know, no matter what you want to do, it takes practice. And that's all it is. It's about practice. And I'm still practicing. So I don't I don't think I'll ever be at the point where I've mastered anything, because there's always going to be something else to learn.
Meet more St. Louis Art Fair artists at stlfair.com. This year's virtual fair will take place at stlouisartfair.com.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, my name's Miss Smith at 643 Elm Street. I have a 2-year-old with me right now, and she has a tracheostomy, and it's clogged, and I can't get it out.
Okay, ma'am, we have units responding. Is your child part of the Special Needs Tracking and Awareness Resource?
Yeah.
What number is she?
246.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Help is on the way. Medic 1, Engine 1, respond, 643 Elm Street, 2-year-old female, respiratory distress, tracheostomy issue. This is STARS child number 246, timeout 0930.
STARS is an acronym for Special Needs Tracking and Awareness Response System. It was something that was developed as just a community project 5 years ago. God, I can't believe it's been 5 years. The intent at the time, was for it to stay at the ambulance district I was working at, because when we started out, I didn't know what we'd uncovered. All we did really is I took children with complex medical needs, built an emergency plan for them.
The main form is really focused on what is the most basic information you need to know to get through this emergency that you're driving to right now. And then we have a lot of specialty information in the background that they can access through attachments.
Emergency services in general, and especially in pediatrics, works off what we like to call recipe type algorithms. Like, you see a kid that presents with ABC, they fall within these vital signs, you treat with 1, 2, 3. We want to find the kids where that treatment of 1, 2, 3 is not only probably not going to be effective, it could cause harm. So that's a big part of STARS, is managing. We need to somehow know via 911 dispatch that these are the kids we're going on, and we can flag them in the home. But the issue with that also is that our kids travel. So we just numbered the kids individually and then talked to 911 dispatch. They house the emergency plans as well. Then when EMS was dispatched on these kids, they were told, for example, be advised you're responding on star 7002.
Once they hear that number, then they'll access the information for that kid. Traditionally or previously, that used to be, binders with sheets of paper, and that turns out that model worked as well as it could in the beginning, but there's a lot of holes in that model, and so then it kind of went to PDFs on iPads, and then we developed the first iteration of the database. The first time I saw the technology piece, it was just mind-blowing. The idea that maybe we could leverage technology to fix this big, huge problem in EMS, which up until now, everybody was just sort of like, yeah, it's a problem. We don't really know what we're going to do about it. We'll just keep on going. And just the idea that, no, that's actually a really severe problem. That's something we should try to find a solution to.
When we started out in Rock Township Ambulance District in Arnold, Missouri, I was on number 14. So I call those first 14 my originals, because number 14 was the last one I physically enrolled myself. Now we have 503 active in our database between Missouri and Illinois. Children on home ventilators is a big one.
I have the notoriety of running the first ventilator STARS call that was ever run in the system. We were responding at night in the rain. It was pouring down rain. I'm trying to read the notes on this kid who lived 3 minutes from the house, so I'm directing my partner and trying to get through it. And we pulled up to the house. Mom and home health nurse were having a disagreement in the front driveway. And I just remember being able to be like, well, that's weird. And I walked right past them and I walked into a bedroom that looked like an ICU. None of it surprised me. Like, I knew all of it was coming. I knew that I could talk directly to that patient. I knew, how that patient typically presented. And I was able to just start treating the patient.
One of our tracheostomy kids, he's been doing really well, but he has a particularly complex airway. He's a great, I like to call any kid a scenario, but he's a great training scenario to use examples of, you don't know what you're doing, because he always shocks everybody when we use his example. This is a problem. That's not going away. In fact, it's only growing. So our kids, we're saving more kids than ever.
Hospitals couldn't always talk to the EMS providers, and parents didn't feel comfortable sometimes talking to the EMS providers, and we provide this way where we can all discuss potential situations, the best way to get through them, and I would really like to see that model spread. I think that we have found something amazing here.
As soon as Nick and I think we've seen it all, I say, oh my gosh, I can't. Have you ever heard of this? No, I've never heard of this. I can't handle this kid. I have to turn over to this specialist. So we think it's just going to serve kids best if there is one program nationally for these sick kids traveling that everybody in the emergency world is familiar with.
I think the sky's the limit. I would think we can spread state by state and hopefully be a national program someday.
Later on Spotlight, the largest Black History mural in Missouri.
So we're at Art St. Louis, and there is nothing on the gallery walls right now. And many galleries all over the world are probably experiencing the same thing that we are, which is catching up with the world because we've all been shut down for 3+ months. So in order to kind of make up for lost time, we decided to offer an online virtual exhibition, and the show that we have online is called Life Interrupted. This is only online, and we use an online exhibition service called Exhibit, which gives you the opportunity to tour the exhibit as if it were on the gallery walls, which is really fascinating. So that I'm able to do my job as a curator and gallery director by taking all the artworks that I selected for the show and actually placing them on gallery walls in the fashion that I would if this were presented in our own gallery. Because this is a virtual exhibition, there's no limit to the size of artwork. We do have size limits in the gallery because our walls are only so tall and our pedestals are only so big, so we have to limit sizes there. So we put a call for entry out to our Art St. Louis member artists back in the spring, asking them to submit artworks that were created specifically March, April, and May of 2020 during the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders here in St. Louis, and the kinds of imagery highlighted in this exhibition include people in masks, playgrounds that have been taped off with police tape. So there are things that are more kind of lonely and sad, but there are many things that are optimistic and joyful. There are a lot of depictions of nature, artists depicting feelings of joy that they get to stay at home with their loved ones and partners or families, and depictions of life continuing and being optimistic. And I tried to select artworks for the show that covered all of the emotions. Life Interrupted, presented by Art St. Louis, is on view through July 15th, and it can be found on our website, which is artstlouis.org. And the virtual exhibit is right there on our webpage for the show. You can also find it on our Facebook page. The next exhibit that we're actually going to present in the Art St. Louis Gallery, because we are closed temporarily, is Storytellers, and that opens August 1st and it runs through September 10th. And it's really about narrative and fiction and poetry and all the things about the written word. For more information, visit our website, which is artstlouis.org.
HEC celebrates St. Louis like no other media outlet, highlighting those making a difference through science and technology.
It's a wonderful community of young entrepreneurs who are all doing very amazing things.
Focusing on arts and education.
Poverty is not going to stop a student from getting a quality education. We can't let that happen.
Broadcasting meetings and functions to educate and inform our community.
St. Louis feels like a city on the road to extraordinary things.
Producing compelling documentaries celebrating our region.
Henry Shaw founded the Missouri Botanical Garden, one of the first of its kind in the country and one of the best of its kind in the world.
Visit hecmedia.org for up-to-date, locally produced stories about the people and organizations who make St. Louis great.
The sun is getting low, and the cars are coming in. That's the sky, and this is the Skyview. Winter is over. The Skyview Drive-In in Belleville is open. It must be officially summer. St. Louis moviegoers at hardtop theaters are notorious late arrivers, but people get to the Skyview early.
We get here about 7:30.
So an hour before the movie starts?
Yeah.
Why do you get here so early?
To make sure you have a good spot. That's the best thing.
Getting here early isn't just about getting a good spot. It's about going to the park, going on a picnic, having a tailgate party, and going camping all in one. And I gotta tell you, this is more comfortable than my couch in my living room. This is a party with a big crowd. Nobody goes to the drive-in alone. There's a double feature on both screens at the end, and nobody's gonna shush you if you talk. It's bringing the living room to a gravel parking lot. This is going out to a movie.
It's just a lot of fun. Throwback to when you were a kid.
Yep. It's easier with kids.
To have
you don't have to be quiet.
More people bring out the chairs and open the tailgate than watch from inside their car. They only drive the car to the drive-in to sit outside of it, sit on top of it, to spread out in front of it. What do you pack up? I mean, what am I seeing here?
Fruits, and we have, open that thing up, we have salad and chicken from Schnucks.
So it is dinner, it's
Yeah,
not just
dinner.
snacky.
Yeah, dinner, and the popcorn.
Just like the old days, there's still a playground in front of the screen. There's still a garishly lit concession stand where they still serve movie time favorites. Hot dogs,
That'd be $9.19.
popcorn, and nachos.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful.
Despite that, drive-ins changed when those tinny window speakers went away. Remember these great old intermission warnings?
If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office.
Nowadays, at the newfangled old-fashioned drive-in, you dial the sound in on your FM radio. Nope, this is not your father's drive-in. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, it is.
I came here when I was like that tall. Just as much fun. Just something I want her to know about. It's one of the only things that's still left. It's a relic of the past.
Is it still fun?
Yeah.
Fun because it's the drive-in or fun because you're coming with your dad?
Both.
Once upon a time, there were a dozen drive-ins within 10 miles of the Arch. Theaters with names like the Holiday, the Thunderbird, the St. Anne, the Riverside, and a lot more. Now, the Skyview is it for miles. From the days of the drive-in movie as a passion pit to a twin-screen theater that plays first-run movies, where people come to sit outside the car on warm nights, who bring blankets to cover up with on the cool ones, where the kids still put on their PJs and fall asleep before the second feature. Where going to the movies is more than just going to the movies.
You come out, you sit in your lawn chair, you have some concessions, and you're watching, a movie with a bunch of people. It's about the experience.
Now it's showtime, folks. And you can be sure it's the best show in town. Your continued patronage is very, very welcome.
When the light is almost gone and the previews finally begin, people make their last runs to the concession stand and the bathrooms. There's always some bozo who turns on their headlights. Some things never change. Late arrivals come and annoy the people who are ready for showtime. And finally, the first movie begins. And as that story begins, this one ends.
HEC Media presents Talking with Authors, the podcast. Your favorite writers and genres with diverse subjects and styles. Like New York Times bestselling author Brad Meltzer, crime writer Karen Slaughter, Charles Fishman, Sarah Kendzior, Judy Blume. With new podcasts dropping bi-weekly. Subscribe to Talking with Authors wherever you get your podcasts. From HEC Media, Left Bank Books, and the St. Louis County Library.
Better Family Life is an organization that works to be a change agent in the lives of the people that we touch. We work to see urban communities, in particular here in the St. Louis metropolitan area, improve. Most of the people whom we serve are African American, and we will serve anybody who walks through our doors saying that they can utilize and benefit from the work that we do. I had a vision for a mural on the first floor of our cultural center. I wanted people to have a visual impact of what it is and who we are as an agency from a historical perspective and where we saw ourselves going as African Americans into the future. So that visual timeline needed to tell a story from the dawn of humanity up to present day. And that's exactly what it does. The purpose of the mural is to educate, to inspire, to reinvigorate anybody who looks at it. For those people who feel like they cannot work their way out of whatever murk and mire they find themselves in, to look at that mural and say, you know what, these folks went through all these challenges, and they did it, and during a time period that it was rough, very, very rough, very, very difficult on people of African descent, then why can't I do it? I can achieve anything I put my mind to. So that's what I want that mural to do for people.
The mural itself is about 95 feet long. It's a little bit over 5 feet tall. It's taken us close to 2.5 years to actually complete the mural. A lot of the time was spent on drawings as well as a lot of research. In essence, I try for that wall to talk and to speak out exactly what is it that history is telling us and what is so important. A mural it's a visual language that we have to study and hopefully empower ourselves to try to give ourselves more strength to grow as human beings. And then once we grow, we're able to contribute positively to the society that we live in. That's what I would like the mural to actually do, is just to move you from inside your soul.
I am particularly proud of the mural because of what it can mean to children. I think that the children in the community will better understand their history.
You know, when we first came into the facility, that wall was kind of bare. But during the years, that's really about 2.5 years, we watched it develop and we saw a story being told. I think it's very, very reflective of the past leading up to now.
The mural has taught me a lot. It shows me what there is for me to learn about African American history.
At the end of the mural, we end up with a positive aspect of it. We end up with a vibrant neighborhood. We always have to be positive in this aspect. We have a lot of negative that's thrown at us at the world today. But I believe there's a lot more good in this world than there is bad. Go back to the goodness. I feel now it's finally going to be able to do its job. We already put all the information up on a wall. Now people have to read it and learn from it. But the important issue is that it has to translate into some type of empowerment of the people. That's what it has to do.
Thanks for watching Spotlight. You can see any of these stories again at hecmedia.org. Join us next Sunday to learn about the arts, authors, culture, and more. 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.